Hey, welcome to Select Arcane. It's finally the month of March, and you know what that means? It's Little Rider doll making month. If you know about NaMoPayMo, it's the doll version. And this is such a fun challenge. Essentially, you try to make a Little Rider doll in the month of March. And as you know, I've participated a few years. But this year I want to do something different and unique. And I did do a poll a few years ago about this exact topic. Did you guys like when I did that Monster High doll last year? There was an overwhelming answer of, no, we don't want this on your channel. But too bad! It was my second most popular video of all time behind Briarfest. So, let's get started. As you may know, I have a hidden stash of Monster High dolls in the tip-top corner of the studio closet. And pardon the mess. The box is very dusty because it has not been opened since that Rusalka video. Inside you can find a variety of bodies that I found on Facebook Marketplace and collected in a Walmart parking lot. So let's choose the right doll and then I'll talk about the concept art. I'm aiming for a natural skin tone, which is few and far between in my stash, but I pull out everyone who could be suitable. We have Cleo Denial, Claudine Wolf, Howleen Wolf, and Rebecca Steam. And I am way too old for Monster High, but at least I know the names, so give me that. For this project, I'm going to go with Cleo because she just seems a little bit more normal. And I just mean normal in the sense of that she looks a bit more human. Rebecca was also a good choice, but she has some metal details in her face and a shimmer in her plastic, so that's why I skipped her. This is the 2023 Frights Camera Action Cleo, and she's absolutely disgusting. None of this hair is salvageable. So while I cut this hair off, let's talk about the concept art. Maybe I'm just harkening back to my old university days, but I just kind of felt like doing something a little bit experimental. As Monster High is more of a fashion doll, I kind of want to do a Little Rider doll who is more of a fashion doll rather than a functional doll. Firstly, I don't have a horse that will fit her. Secondly, I will not be showing her. While she could actually ride because she's fully articulated, I don't really want her to. Like, you know those paid models in equine magazines? They're standing there posing in their clothes with their horses, and the horse is treated like an accessory and not even being held correctly, and the models themselves look so confused on what they should do. So that's what I'm aiming for, that uncanny valley feeling of a girl who really is not an equestrian but really wants that equestrian aesthetic. And only the aesthetic, no horses. So, to get her started, after cutting off all that disgusting hair, I fill up a cup with boiling water. Placing her inside of that upside down, I try to... Okay, let me just do this again. There, I pull her head off. Now I'm left with a head and a body, and this body is just going to sit to the side because we're not going to be using it right now. I put her head back into the boiling water. This is going to soften all that glue in her head so I can remove her hair. Then I take these needle-to-nose pliers that have a lock mechanism. I got them from Rio Rondo, by the way, and I scoop all the hair out inside of her head. I lock them when I do have the hair and then I pull. It's just kind of easier on the hands. And this does take a little bit of time. So I put on a movie and I just pluck away. Finally, when she's sufficiently bald, I pull out my 100% acetone. You can use nail polish remover, but it's going to be a slow, tedious process and it's just not as effective. Taking some paper towel, I wipe over her scalp and entire face. You'll notice that there's a lot of smudging, so I go back and forth and clean that up. And in those hard to reach areas, I'm using Q-tips. Once her face is completely clean, I go in with some soap and water. That acetone is going to eat away at that vinyl face over a period of time, so it's important to stop that process by soaping her face up and washing it all off. And once she's clean and fully dried, this is what we're left with, a beautiful blank canvas. Now, if this was a typical Yvonne doll, which I've done a million times, I would be pulling out my viscose hair. But it's not, it's a Monster High. So this time I'm dipping into my acrylic hair stash. Yes, I know you didn't know I had one. These are all from the Doll Planet, and I think I bought these during the pandemic or something, and this was some sort of sample pack. While she could go with any color here, whether it be natural or unnatural, I really liked this Blackest Night. I know, shocker, right? I thought it suited her really well, and we could go in a lot of different directions. But as you can see, I really don't have that much hair, and there is no chance of me ordering more and it getting here in time. But I have a plan. Just trust the process. First, I start by cutting the hank in half. I don't have much, but it is way too long. So now I have double the amount. Next, I'm going to be following her natural hairline that she already has, and I'm just going to be going all the way around, like a monk. There will be no hair at the top of her head, and there's a reason for that, but we'll get into it. This rerouting tool also came from the Doll Planet. It's essentially a needle that's cut, and you can take a few hairs onto it and then plunge it into the doll's head. Twist, pull out, and the hair stays where it is. It's pretty neat. But I must say, cutting into an Yvonne doll's head and just gluing it in is 1,000 times faster. But hey, this is fun too. Oh no. It broke. And I don't have another one. Oh no. I didn't film me fixing it, but essentially I cut an extra sewing needle that I had and used that as my replacement. It worked, but it wasn't great. After finishing the hair, which looks unfinished, I flip her upside down and fill up her neck with tacky glue. This is a type of fabric glue, and I leave it overnight to dry. The next day I decided to work on her body. Monster highs are always on point with these stilettos, and we can't have that while riding, right? Heels down. So I mark this V notch in the top of her foot. I'm just using girl math and eyeballing, measuring with my heart, all that. And I take a Dremel and cut that V out. Her feet are made of extremely hard plastic, and this is my first time cutting into a Monster High doll, but I try putting her in boiling water anyways. Trying to push those feet into position was hard. I had just come back from the gym and my Fitbit was telling me I was going through another workout. In the process of this, Eric brought me some tea and I almost dipped her leg into the tea. What's customizing without casualties, right? I did end up getting an okay result with her feet, and at this point I decided to pop the head back on, because I learned from Rusalka I cannot squish the head after I do the face. Alright, day 3. Today I boil wash. That really is boiling water being poured over her head. This encourages the hair to lay flat and it stops it from being really springy. And I did purchase this hair based on that it can be boiled for this exact purpose. I brush out a little and leave it to dry. Oops, time got away from me. Adulting responsibilities, am I right? I do have a few things brewing in the background for this specific doll, but we're going to talk about those in a minute. I'm going to start by masking her face. I just take a piece of scrap cloth and pin it to the best of my abilities to cover her hair. I also use an elastic to pull back the hair, and then off camera I finagle it all in place until it looks like this. Today we're using one of my least favorite sealants, Mr. Super Clear. It's exceptionally volatile and you never know what it's going to do. But for Monster High dolls, it seemed to do just fine. So I lightly coat her face, always spraying in a well-ventilated area. This stuff stinks. And then I leave her face to dry for about an hour. My goal for this face-up is really just make it better than Rusalka. I was really disappointed the last time I tried this, so I just really wanted to improve. I started my sketch with watercolor pencils, so if I messed up I could just wash it off. And I opted for tracing her eye molding. Cleo's face was intended to be more North African, Middle Eastern, based on Cleopatra, who was Macedonian, aka Greek, but I digress. I decided to roll with it. One thing that I really wanted to do for this face-up to make it really bougie was to make it very modern, glam, What is happening in Dubai right now? What are the trends for makeup, eye shading, etc.? As you can tell, I don't know anything about makeup, so I had to do a lot of research. I think my reference photo was a Kardashian, but honestly, I have no idea. The point is that I went with a very heavy winged eye, pale, full matte lips, and very little contour shading. Anytime I wasn't able to build up the opacity that I needed, I sprayed again with Mr. Super Clear and restarted the layer. This built depth, contrast, and opacity. And when I felt satisfied, I added a little bit of Pearlex powders, specifically an antique bronze for her eyeshadow. I admit a lot of this I had to do off camera because I needed to put my eyeballs right up to her face, and my camera was in the way. Oh, I should probably mention, I used watercolor pencils for this entire face, but the powder you see me brushing on her eyelids and lips are actually South Korean Mungyo hard pastels. I used them for the shading around her face, eyeshadows, blushing, etc. And then of course the Pearlex powder for her eyelids. No gouache, no acrylic paint, and I'm actually really proud of this face. I know I can do better, but this is probably the max of my abilities today. A few days passed and I decided, well, better now or never, I better work on those clothes. I found a new clothing pattern by Tony Marquez, and I'm going to be reusing Delightful's legging pattern. I put this off because the reality is I'm not terribly great at clothes, and I'm worried this is going to cheapen the entire doll at the end. I also needed time to process what I was going to actually do. I really liked the burgundy and brown on the left. Eric agreed that it was his favorite as well. But I also didn't want her to be mistaken for just some girl going on a shopping trip. Meanwhile, I felt the right was going a little bit too far, too equestrian, too professional, and I realized I really needed to harmonize the two. I used that same red and brown color palette, and I don't know what jurisdiction would allow brown breeches, but it didn't feel right. I liked it so much more on a casual setting because that brown belt and brown boots kind of broke it up. And after a little more research, I came up with this. I didn't realize that matchy-matchy sets were in, and it just sounds so perfect for this doll. And again, I don't know what jurisdiction would allow red breeches, but I think for this scenario it's perfect. Double checking my very limited fabric stash, this was all I had in a similar color, and it would not do. So, guess where we're going? That's right, the usual stop, Valley Village. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes, it did take me this long to resume my doll again. I'm using the legging pattern from Delightful. I just printed out and cut out the template. I prep my fabric by cutting up the leggings and making large squares of fabric. And check out these pocket liners. This mesh might be great for this doll. I pin my template to the fabric and cut it out with a cutting wheel. I find the wheel is so much more accurate than scissors. And I do this twice because she has 2 legs. I follow the instructions and start by hemming the top of the pants. Of course I have to hand sew because I don't have a sewing machine. And we all know that sewing isn't my forte. I am a self-taught seamstress. So it's all gonna go downhill from here. But saying that, I think these are the best pants I've ever made in my entire life. Lots more to do though. Next I started on the shirt. This pattern is from Tawnyland LP, and I'm using some plain old cotton fabric. I struggled a little bit with this one, ended up putting her shirt on backwards because why not? But I think we got there in the end. I omitted the sleeves because I think it would be too bulky. I used the same pattern for her jacket. This is technically more of a tuxedo, so I did have to make some amendments. And it came out a little rough, but need to fix that. I did a lot of finessing off camera. Some things were a little bit too small to focus in on, and honestly my phone was getting in the way. So this is what I did. What I should have done for the shirt was a romper, so instead I tied a string to the bottom of the front of the shirt and then kind of wrapped it around to the back and sewed it together. Now the shirt won't ride up at all. I tucked that into her pants and then moved over to the jacket. It was lumpy in all the wrong places, so I tried my hand at making darts. I added buttons and glued on the collar. This is my first ever jacket attempt, and even for my Yvonne dolls, I have always avoided a show jacket because I've always considered it too hard, so I'm pretty proud of this even though it's my first attempt. A lot to improve on though, of course. Well, I guess it's time to tackle those shoes. I scoured the internet and there was not one pattern for a Monster High sized riding boot. Hint hint creators, we really need one. I'm going to use my last scrap of black leather. Like, this is literally it. I have to go get some more. And I winged it. I basically created my own pattern from memory based on what I've done for Yvonne. And it's not great. I don't have a last, I don't really have a sole. But I did my best. I tried to do lacing. And if I had the proper materials and a real pattern, they would definitely be better. But this is a lot better than my first ever shoe attempt. Moving on. Okay, so why am I baking a cake? And why is the doll bald? Two major questions we must ask ourselves. And they are completely related. This all goes back to my concept art. Remember that helmet? I really wanted a Monster High scale riding helmet. But they don't exist, and I would need one 3D printed. So Eric found one. Compliments of Jorge Aster. Found on Cults. It's one of those 3D file sharing programs. He edited it and resized it, and even though I have a degree in stuff like this, no thanks. Not my thing. But we don't own a printer, and that's where this sketchy deal comes into play. Eric recruited his school BFF, handed the file over to him, it was printed, and I got them in hand. And where the heck does the cake come in? Well, it's payment, of course. It costs money to print little helmets. So the cake traveled 2 hours to school, was handed off in the parking garage, and I'm pretty convinced by the time this video comes out, the cake would have been eaten by now. So thank you to Saad, who made this helmet possible. The helmets themselves were of really good quality. I got two, one a little bit larger than the other, and I started prepping them. I used wire cutters and an X-Acto knife to clean them up. I filled the dents in with Bondo. Primed in Duplicolor Sandable Primer in gray, of course. And finished in black Duplicolor Perfect Match. It's a car spray paint. And voila, doesn't this helmet look neat? I did consider it making it glossy or adding some glitter, but I kind of just left it. Maybe next time. And check this out, it fits on her head perfectly with some finagling. I did have to do her hair off screen because I had a pincher between my knees, and my original plan was a bun, but it made her a little bit too professional, so I decided to go with my second concept and just go for a low pony. There was a few other things I did off screen, like gloss her eyes, as well as add some fake lashes, something I deeply regret not doing on my Rusalka doll. And with that, my Little Rider Doll Making Challenge doll for 2026 is done. Well, she took me all month, but meet Amīrah. It means princess in Arabic. I started this doll before the whole Middle Eastern conflict, and I guess I was a little bit influenced because all the references I had were from the UAE. Is she the best doll in the world? Absolutely not. But this is the first time I did a riding jacket, the first time I tried to do tall riding boots on a Monster High, the first time ever using 3D printed parts, and I'm very pleased to say I think this is my best face-up yet. For those wondering, that pendant on her chest is simply a little Pisces charm. Since I was mostly working on her during the time of Pisces, that's what she is. I would love to know your thoughts, how I can improve for next time. And hopefully I turn some of those people over who didn't want me to do Monster High to kind of liking this doll. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram @SelectArcane or on Facebook by the same name. And if you're interested in joining the Little Rider doll making challenge next year, feel free to sign up on Facebook.